Welcome back everybody to Kerbal Space Program Interstellar Quests, a playthrough in which we are trying to get to the promised worlds of KSP 2 by basically going through tons of mods, career play and another bunch of shenanigans. And in one of the previous episodes, I think it was episode number 19, we launched a crew on board of the Zephereus, or space shuttle, that is munar capable. Basically we converted the entire cargo hold, almost the entire cargo hold, into fuel. But it's time to go home, and since only 2 people will fit in the taxi, I think this is Nador of Kerbin, who's taken a very creative solution by just hanging on the back of the taxi and driving over there, which he may come to regret because of old Barry's driving style. So Scott Kerbin stayed on board of the shuttle to do, I don't know, calculations, checks and balances and flight plans and stuff like that. And our other crew has been very busy working on Project Westmarch that you've seen, and the project that we launched to Jewel in the previous episode. But it's time for them to go home. And so they head back to the trusted craft. And in the distance you can see our work on the what's the thing called? The mass collider. The railgun thingy that is, and I'll come back to it. We're making progress on that. We figured out we're going to do this with the Pathfinder mod, but I still have to figure out how that works exactly. Regardless, that's something for a different episode. We are boarding our trusted space shuttle, which has been refueled on the Mun. So it has been designed to have enough fuel to get all the way to the Mun, make its ascent, and a proper landing with something to spare, not too much. But we had more than enough fuel to dance around the landing pad, as you may remember. And if we're going to do this, we will need some kind of a craft with a ladder, I suppose, like you would have in a normal airport. Because having people fly over there with a jetpack, I don't think that's something we would normally do. But we'll get to that. At some point, we'll design a craft capable of servicing our... The craft that visit our place, because now we're also just installing fuel pumps and doing over-the-air transfer of fuel, which is okay with Pathfinder, I guess, but it does feel a bit cheaty. So we'll build a proper tanker and servicing craft, like we did with Wendy for the Segan craft. I think Wendy is still around somewhere. Anyway, I quickly created a ramp with Kerbal constructs because I thought I put on vernier thrusters, which would allow the craft to pitch up significantly. But I may have made a mistake somewhere, or I don't know what happened between the testing and the actual production of the craft. And this is something you would do normally. You would build something to help a shuttle get off a ramp, like a launching ramp or something like that. If you want to see a cool video, Arrays Aerospace recently did one where he launched a plane from a ramp on Earth, on real solar system. So we're going to do something similar. Gently go up the slope, don't lose the tail fin. And this is of course like 6 times speed up. So I was rather careful, don't worry. And we can safely take off, retract our landing gear, and you can see that Munbase Alpha has turned into a giant city of science. And a city that at some point in time will turn into something of leisure, and maybe people will start living there, and we'll start building domes and stuff like that. I'm having real great fun with Kerbal constructs, and I'm actually dabbling in trying to see if I can make some of my own constructs. But it's something for a different episode. I'll give you a tour of the base later on. For now, we should focus on getting home with plenty and plenty of fuel. Like this thing has, I don't know, 16 or 1700 meters per second. When it's fully fueled, so enough to get from low Kerbin orbit all the way down to the Mun and then get back. Here we are, and since we have so much fuel, I thought, why focus on burning up the heat shield, because I'm not sure if the shuttle's heat shield can actually take the atmosphere. Let's burn up our refuel over here, which turned out to be a problem. Because I had miscalculated at some point, and this is where we run out of fuel. And I'm like, what just happened? And we're still in orbit. We're still in an eccentric orbit, like something like 100 kilometers by, I don't know, 200, 300, 400,000. So I thought about it for a few moments, and then I realized we have a lot of monopropellant on board. And so we're using the nose thrusters of the Zephereus to bring us down into the atmosphere. Barely. So I also run out of monopropellant, but then I'm something like 60 kilometers, 60 or 58, 50, I think it was 58 kilometers up in the atmosphere. So that should be enough to slow us down, which is what we're going to attempt. This took some time, so we're going to see a couple of passes. Yeah, I'm going to make maximum use of aero braking. So I've put the plane in at like a 50 degrees angle. I'm checking out the parachutes to make sure that they don't accidentally deploy and we get rid of them, because that would be bad. We won't be able to slow down then. And here we go. So this is the first pass. We dipped into the atmosphere, significantly lowered our apoapsis, but also lowered our periapsis a bit. And that is the one that really matters, because on the second pass, oh wow. You gotta love the sunshine. Maybe that's why they did this. They did this intentionally, just to have one more sunrise over Kerbin. I'm sure that's why Scott's reasoning. By the way, I did some later tests. The shuttle would have been more than fine to withstand the heat of re-entry. That's something we just did not do. So we'll do a second pass. And I remembered at this point that Apollo and also Soyuz have off-centered capsules, which is really important when you play real solar system, not so much in stock KSP. But I'm putting myself at something like 100 or 110 degree angle at the second pass, which basically will make the airstream push the craft down. And if you have FAR installed, like the aerodynamics mod, this will actually have a significant effect, as you will see in a moment, where we start hitting the atmosphere and the craft starts heating up, but the plasma actually pushes us down, lowering us further into the atmosphere. In real solar system, you would use it the other way around. You would probably go in something like 45 degrees, or I think the real shuttle went in at 40. And you sort of skip off the atmosphere. You stay longer in the atmosphere. You take a beating for a longer period of time. But it's not that intense. Like, we're putting a lot of G's on the craft. Here we go. And I'm checking MacJeb's auto landing or landing prediction system to see am I going to land in the ocean? Because I don't want to land in the ocean. That would rip this plane apart. It's already difficult enough to land a plane. At least for me. But yeah, it will turn out to be fine. You see me pull up the ScanSat map, the map of Kerbin, to see where are we going. We're going to skip over the Badlands and land on this main continent, unfortunately in the dark. It looks like Highlands. Highlands is not good. Highlands is very hilly. This craft is not built for very hilly terrain, so we got to find a nice spot to land on. I'm looking for an airfield nearby. It would have been fun to have an... because we did the episode where we visited all the airfields, and with this very reason to know where they are, having detected them, and wow, can you see that plasma buildup? This is called the Firefly mod, and it's awesome. You can see all the particles built up, and up until a very long time that had been more or less speculation what that would look like, and then we saw Starship re-enter and have a live camera feed of the plasma eating at the heat fins. I think that's a sight we will never forget. Regardless, Scott Kerbin, our qualified pilot, our master pilot, puts us through the atmosphere, and you heard the second sonic boom, which means we are below Mach 2. And I think that's Mach 1. Maybe that one was Mach 2, I don't know. But apparently he feels confident to flip over and pick up some speed. No, not pick up some speed, but have a little bit less drag to move our landing site a little bit over this mountain ridge that we've spotted in the head of us. You can see me trying to figure out where it is that we're going to land. And we got quite a bit of downrange capability by lifting the nose up. We'll lose speed, obviously, and there's a lot of drag on this craft, so you'll lose a lot of speed very fast. But it's a really cool craft. Let me pick up a little bit of science as we're flying over these highlands or midlands, and we're making our way down. We're looking for some terrain. Unfortunately, the sunrise is coming, which will give us a better look of the terrain. You can see some water. Water typically means flat land. Flat land typically means we have the ability to maybe not sacrifice our craft upon landing. So I'm aiming for that part. Double check the parachutes to make sure that they're not accidentally going to fire and rip our plane in two parts. You can see, oh, that's... Copernicus extended, something like that. There's a mod that brings up these wing streaks, which is really nice. And And for this occasion, I've turned on MacJeb landing predictions, you can see. And I think this is Kerbal Engineers. The red dot is Kerbal Engineer. And it gives you an impact indicator. And it's not very precise for spacecraft, but good enough for now. And we're gliding towards the sunrise. Scott Kerbin, you can see me, a little bit of Kerbal Engineer on the left side, trying to figure out where we are. So Scott Kerbin, Nadorf Kerbin, Aldebury and Aramore Kerbin are there. And they're on their way home. Having spent about a couple of months on the moon working on these exciting projects. And I am trying to figure out a cost-effective way of getting people towards the moon and getting them back. I mean, in my mind, there's a kind of an economy going to pick up where the moon base will grow in size. There will be more activities there. We can build spacecraft there. We can mine it for fuel and ore. So we should find a good way of getting people there and getting them back. Maybe the shuttle is not the best design. Basically because of the wings. You don't need the wings, and the engines are in the wrong spot when you want to land on the moon. Could try kind of a VTOL kind of system, but it's really hard to predict where the fuel is going to be and where the center of mass is going to be. So having two propulsion systems on a craft, I don't know. Not without a mod to balance everything out. I found a empty, reasonably flat patch of land, and Scott is making his attempt to show his mastery skills of aircraft and airborne flying. And the Zephereus is the Iris class space shuttles is a very capable class. It flies really, really nice up until something like 80 kilometers per second. And wow, look us rip through the grass and stay in one piece. I had not expected that. And here we are, first try. Yeah, but it's also an expensive craft to fly. It's like something like 120,000 funds to get her off the pad. And of course, we could in theory recuperate them if we were to land on an airfield. So we're doing a new experiment. This is the Hermes D variant. It's a next generation shuttle, and it's based after the shuttle design that ESA made for their own spaceplane, which is really still a shame that they never pursued that because of political unrest. But up until now, the shuttles we've been using are the French design, because the French originally designed the shuttle, at least the European shuttle, of course. And the Hermes is the sort of final product of that iteration. And here we go. We're launching it on an Hyperion first stage, without the boosters, without the second stage. Taking a page from RP1, where in general, once you tool a rocket, once you've got a production line up running, it's not that... it would be the smartest thing to actually use that. So we're not designing a new booster. You do see some landing legs. There are some steering grid fins on there. There's parachutes. There's a probe core on the top. So we're going to try and see if we can do a SpaceX kind of landing of this craft, because that would make it very cost effective. The shuttle is quite cheap compared to the Mark III space shuttles. It's of course a lot smaller and can't bring much cargo. But to the moon, that's not really the main issue. I think the moon suffers from people, and the space station does need cargo flights. But we'll figure out that. We still have Iris. Here we go. Detaching the space plane, and for now we will switch to the booster as the space thing gets flung into orbit. Here we go. So we're something like 75 kilometers is our apoapsis, but we are now currently only something like 40 or 50 kilometers up, because this booster has so much punch it can throw the spacecraft up in the air, flip around, and then still have something like 1500 meters per second left to backburn towards, at least in the direction of the launch site. We won't make it all the way back to the launch site. We're not a Falcon 9 that can actually do that. And I've actually never done this before, so we're testing the vehicle out. You can see a ton of parachutes have been installed as a resort to see if that works. We have some small grid fins, which I'm not sure if they actually work. I packed a ton of RCS radial thrusters to flip the booster around. That seems to work really nicely. And there's of course a reaction wheel hidden somewhere in the probe core as well. And we know that we're going to end up in the ocean, because that is actually the plan. And I'll show you in a second why that is the plan. Here we go. There's the parachutes, and they all get ripped off. Yeah, so that's not exactly the right pressure or the right altitude. The grid fins are really cool. You can see Firefly having fun with burning up the titanium. And if you look to the right of the rocket, you can already see the mobile launch pod that I've been making. It is a offshore facility for recovering spacecraft. And of course, we're not going to try and land there on the first try, mainly because I forgot to write down the latitude and longitude of where I put down the static part. And I think I got pretty close, but not close enough. Yeah. So we imagine that this is all part of the plan. We're testing this out, and the Kerbals on the launch platform, here we are. Here you can see the platform. Are observing the booster crash into the ocean a little bit further away in a safe distance, making a good, safe landing. And that's 40,000 funds. Regardless, we have Wells Space Services, named after the creator of the KNES mod, which modeled this exceptionally beautiful space plane. It uses bipropellant, and I've now used the same engine as on the Callisto, but there's actually a better engine that we can use, which is going to seriously boost the performance of this plane. And I've also not put any cargo in the space plane itself, so there's significantly more delta V to be had if we fill that one with fuel as well. But we've reached our apoapsis. We're doing orbital insertion, or maybe this is already the transfer burn towards the space station. It picks up a bit of a spin. I'm not sure why it's doing that. There was a kind of a weird artifact in the clouds, or maybe it was a hurricane. Yeah, this is the transfer burn. We're heading towards the International Space Station, or the Kerbin Space Station in low Kerbin Orbit, orbiting about 10 kilometers. And we usually do our inserts at 70, 75. So we catch up with the space station pretty fast, and then we raise our orbits to meet them up in the sky, which typically means we approach them from below, which is where the most of the space ports should be. We'll find out in a moment if that is actually true. Here we go. I think I boosted the velocity a little bit too much because we seem to be high. And we need to get closer to the spacecraft. There's something like maybe a kilometer or two away, and we need to get closer to them, making a minor burn. And again, speeding up means raising your orbit. So yes, really nice shot there. You can see the space station coming. So my expectation would be that we end up a little bit above the space station, because we're now going faster. It kind of makes sense. You need to spend more energy to get higher, so obviously you also need to go faster. Here we go, and we pass over the space station, and now we need to slow down to get lower. It's really counterintuitive. Most people want to point down, and that works for short distances. It would have worked here. But you can see me kill the relative velocity. And I also discovered why these docking ports glow red. That is because of the mod Targetron that allows me to quickly select a craft and select a docking port on the craft, which I thought was super helpful. It also tries to be very helpful by highlighting docking ports, or the ports that you've selected, in red, which I don't find very helpful because it's kind of a weird thing when you're doing a cinematic playthrough. However, it's going to take me a couple episodes to figure that out. So this is new me talking and explaining to you why old me did not fix this. Regardless, we are making our way, and we decided to put the MRK docking port on the back of the spacecraft, fully in the belief that would be a Clampotron compatible size 1 docking port, which would allow it to dock with the same port as the space shuttle does. Like our main docking port facing away from the mini shuttles and the expansion ports that we have on the side. If you pick the expansion ports, like the KK ports, you can see on the right now, that would have allowed us to dock everywhere. But yeah, I miscalculated. So this is the wrong docking port. And obviously, it's obvious that we need to do something, and we need to do it fast and preferably in a stable environment. So Nardorf Kerbin is leaving the space station. Is it Nardorf, or is it... Maybe it's a different one. I don't remember what his name is. Alcas is up there. Valentina is up there. Anyway, he's going to add a small junior docking port just for now. You can see him laser that to the existing docking port until we figure out what is actually going on. He's going to make his way back to the airlock and do some further analysis while the shuttle is getting docked to like the mini ports. The mini ports are designed for the small shuttles, and the Seeker spacecraft is a junior port. You can squeeze a Kerbal through it, but it's kind of a claustrophobic experience. And now we have 2 docking ports showing up red. I do hope I fixed this fast for you guys. Anyway, yeah, on board of the spacecraft is Clawford, Nadorf, Olderberry, and yeah, they're there to test out all the systems. And you can see me set it and trying to figure out the orientation, which I also managed to screw up. You'll see that in a moment. But that's fine. That's fine. We'll get there in the end. So we're parking the spacecraft temporarily on our starboard side. And then we'll fire up the printer. I'm going to show you how to print new parts with Sandcastle, because I'm really in love with this mod. And I think Angel 123, did an amazing job making a very simple mod that really can change your gameplay revolutionary. Here we go. We are aligned and we're approaching our docking port. And back at Kerbin, the engineers are in the emergency briefing rooms trying to figure out a solution and what would be the best way forward. And they will settle on the KK docking port standard. That's the docking port standard that we use to dock modules together. And it's a bit like the common berthing adapter and the station adapter that they use on the International Space Station. Like you have the typical docking port that the Dragon uses and the Cygnus uses. And then we had the Leonardo, like the whole logistic capsules that were briefly brought by the Space Shuttle. And they use this very big docking port, which allows them to come together here. This is Sandcastle. And you can go there through the print shop if you have enough ore. It will tell you how much ore it will take to print a specific part. I found the part that I need. Or I will find the part that I need in a couple of seconds. It's called the KK rover or corridor thingy. This is it. Yep. So I'll queue the item and it goes really, really fast. So I have an experienced engineer in the workshop. So we can have our second engineer already go out there, moving towards the crafty handrail, which is just there for these kind of operations. So you can connect yourself to the space station. And now you have all the time in the world to disconnect your craft, remove the temporarily docking port that we used, and put up the right one. I'm a little bit confused by the red and green and trying to figure out how to align this. You have to push the Alt key on your keyboard and not the V key, which we do in the VAB. Yeah. But I figured it out after some time. So we have a new docking port installed. And the Space Service plane is making its way forward. First make some clearance and some safe distance. And we're going over to the new docking hub that was delivered with the Iris shuttle in one of the previous episodes. I think it's episode 18 or 17 where we brought in this really nice new docking hub, allowing us to, well, at least in the new setup, dock 3 of these class spacecraft together. And we may also ultimately decide to just add another diagonal module there. Here we go. And look at the beautiful, beautiful spacecraft. We've got 7 people room. And for some reasons, free IVA does not work all the way through. But with the magic of video editing, you can actually go through there. This is a hatch which proved to be very stubborn. Maybe it was rusty. Or it has never been opened yet. So I can imagine it takes some time to figure out where that exactly is and find this exact point where Y to open the lever pops up. And you can see me go back and forth. Sometimes you just have to go back and forth 60 million times until you actually get it. Here we go. We got it. And we've entered our space station. This is the hub system that we have. And now things go really easy. This is a habitation module, another docking module, the gym, and we have the galley. I really love this space station. This is from the Buffalo mod by Angel123, and yeah, laboratory is right up. He's gonna greet his colleagues and settle in. But not for long, because we are gonna take the Latitude back home. And I think the Hermes shuttle is a success. It can take twice as many passengers up there. It has a lot more delta V and more capabilities. It's cheaper to launch because of the rules, if the reusability works out. Yeah, so I think this is going to be the last flight of our Hermes Class C, and we're going to decommission these really cute little shuttles. Maybe they'll make a comeback at some point. But for now, we have Valentina, Danemona, Alcas, and Aldebury to return, and we have to do a little bit of an inclination change to end up at the desert airport. I found that MacJeb is really bad at landing space planes or even getting them close to the designated ports, and costing just way too much fuel. So I'll set up a manual maneuver node, but use MacJeb for piloting or plotting where the actual landing happens. And this time I decided to put the landing right on top of Desert Airport, which will turn out to be a very wrong idea. Anyway, it's quite a lengthy burn for Latitude. The Latitude has plenty of monopropellant on board. It has a small cargo container. It can carry 4 astronauts back to Kerbin. And here we go. And you can see this is the modernized version of our C-class space plane. It has these really nice engines. It has aero brakes, which will turn out to be super helpful. And here we go. Now, the original space shuttle never had engines. It glided or was more or less like a brick falling back to Earth. And then hopefully you would end up at the runway. As did the Buran. And the original design of the Buran actually featured a lot of... Well, so did one of the space shuttle designs. But the Buran has always been planned to put features in there. You can hear the engines power up. And you can also see the hot air coming through it. It's not really doing much at this altitude. But it's good to know that they're running. You have these small fuel canisters on the side. And yeah, they're mounted at the center of mass. So even if we drain the fuel, the stability of the plane is going to stay exactly the same, which is helpful. Aesthetically speaking, I probably would have put them further back. But when we were doing this upgrade of the craft, I didn't want to take any changes. And the same is true for the canards on the top. You can see that maybe they were not really necessary, but they do make the plane hyper maneuverable. We are 50 kilometers away from the spaceport. So here's a bit of footage sped up considerably as I'm trying to figure out, hey, where is my airport? And meanwhile we're losing altitude quickly. However, due to the engines, we have quite a cross-race capability. And this is me flying over a very long distance of Kerbin's desert. Maybe it was more than 50 kilometers. We seem to be lined up with the runway. This is 10 times sped up. Flipping to the map here, flipping to other kind of views, trying to figure out where is that bloody thing. There we go. Almost there. And I wish we had more distinguishable features on the lands. Putting up the ScanSat map is always a nice idea. Unfortunately, the bases are not listed there. And yeah, we are making our way down. Here we go. Lining up for the runway. We're pretty much lined up. You can see me try and bleed off some speed. This shuttle actually became very stable after its upgrades. The ability to use the engines to go a little bit further if you have to, and use these air brakes to slow down when you really have to, really made a big difference. What I don't like is the clearance of the wheels. I started building my space planes a little bit differently, with a lot more clearance and a little more strength also in the wheels to avoid them snapping off. But you will see that these are actually quite powerful. And I have to confess, I did make wheels stronger in the config files. Here we go, bouncing off the wheels. As long as the wings are not touching the ground, we are safely back at Kerbin. Yeah, so it's a pity we didn't recover the first stage of the Hyperion. But we're going to see the Hyperion much more frequently. We're also going to see an upgraded version of the Hermes. Maybe we can go and get it all the way to the Mun as well. Maybe we need a different infrastructure to Mun. I'll give that some thought, and I'll see you in the next episode. This is just for the Dutchies, like the polderbaan. Dutch people will know, or people that go to Amsterdam will know what that means. See you in the next episode.